Welcome to Human Risk, a podcast dedicated to the understanding of human behaviour as a risk. Here's your host, Christian Hunt.
Hello and welcome back to a special episode of the Human Risk podcast. It's special because I'm releasing it between the normal schedule, because frankly, I can't wait to get it out to you. And because I know that some of you will absolutely love it and some of you really won't. And that's okay. The point of the show isn't to produce bland content that might appeal to everyone. It's to bring you episodes that I hope will stimulate you and bring different perspectives. And sometimes they might not. But my guest this time, I think, really does. Before I introduce him, a warning. This episode contains lots of adult language. So probably not one you should listen to with any little people within earshot. My guest, James Victore, is an artist, designer and author. He's also a trainer and coach who helps people to unleash their creative sides. Having read his book, Feck Perfuction, yes, that is the title, and no, I didn't just swear, I wanted to get him on the show. I'm also in the middle of attending one of James's courses, called, appropriately enough, The Badass Way. And no, don't worry, I paid full price for the course, so he's on the show because I think he's awesome, not because of some commercial arrangement. Now, there are several reasons I want you to be able to hear what James has to say. Firstly, because I think we all have a tendency to compromise on our creative instincts, particularly at work. It's only since I've been self-employed that I've really started to explore mine. But even then, I've found that James is starting to help me unlock levels I didn't know existed. Secondly, and here's the human risk angle, in the 21st century, particularly in the knowledge economy, we employ people to do things machines can't. If a task is predictable and repetitive, we can give it to a machine. So we employ people to deploy skills like emotional intelligence, judgment, nuance, and creativity. So if we want to get the best out of human capital, what I refer to as human reward, the opposite of human risk, then we need to think about how we do that. As you can hopefully tell, I'm really excited about this, which is why I'm releasing it as quickly as possible after recording it. So please enjoy my conversation with James Victore on creative courage. James, welcome to the Human Risk podcast.
Christian, it is a great pleasure to be here. Thank you.
The pleasure is all mine and my listeners. And look, just to start us off, I was struggling to know how to introduce you, and I wondered if you could help me with that.
I am a former graphic designer. I learned I was a pretty good graphic designer, meaning I could get into most of the museums around the world. And then I realized I'm actually a much better teacher. So now what I teach is I teach professional adults, I teach them creative courage.
And what does that mean, creative courage? I mean,
it means autonomy of of your life. It means ownership of your creativity. It means accepting the role of creativity in your life as a both as a creator and as a parent and as a human being. And I tell the people who come to work with me, you can't be a better creator until you decide to become a better human being.
And having experienced, I'm partway through one of your courses as we record this. I mean, having experienced it, it's really about kind of opening your mind up and saying, actually giving yourself permission to be creative in ways that many of us either feel constrained or constrain ourselves.
Correct. The first line of my book, the first line in Feck Perfuction says, we're all born wildly creative. Some of us just forgot. And I think that's 90% of the world, or at least in the high 90s, mid 90s. We're all creative. At some point along the way, we've disallowed that in ourselves, or it was taught out of us, or we gave it away to fit in. But we're all wildly creative, and I don't care what you do for a living, creativity can and should be a part of that.
And it's fascinating. I mean, you make the very obvious point, right? That as kids, we just do what the hell we want, right? There are no constraints.
Oh, yeah.
And that leads to some weird stuff and some kind of interesting stuff. And I love the fact that, parents, if you're a kid and you draw something, doesn't matter what it is or how good or bad it is, right? Parents love it because it's been produced by their kids. And so I love this idea that we are born with this, and somehow society and us, we just drum it out of ourselves in the name, I guess, of conformity and kind of, I guess, almost sort of being civil. And some of the things that we could do as a kid, we don't seem to be permitted to do. Like school seems to be the start point where this is almost constrained a bit.
Correct. I've started teaching recently that you can basically make a living doing anything. I mean, anything. There are people who make extremely good livings, and they're not even good illustrators or artists. They make doodles, but they're very good at getting them out the door, and they're very good at talking about it, and they're very good at being consistent about it, and they're very good at building a business around it. You can make a living doing anything. And, when I say that, people go, oh, doodles and musicians. No, I fucking mean Nike. I fucking mean NASCAR. I fucking mean Apple. These guys just made a living doing shit they wanted to do, goofing around in a garage. Nike came from who's the track coach? It wasn't Phil Knight. It was the track coach from Oregon, who basically used his wife's waffle maker to make the first waffle shoes. He made shoes particularly for his own runners because he knew the standard go equipment wasn't good enough. It was like, that's fucking creativity. That's just allowing yourself to go, oh, we need shoes. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to start making some.
Right.
Right. That is primal, nascent creativity that we have as children, and then we give it up and go, oh, I guess I should be an accountant because there's money in it.
Right, and it's sensible, and nobody ever got criticized for doing it. And all that,
correct. It's correct.
It's kind of defensive decision making, right? Where you sort of go, it feels like a safe option. Everybody says, "Well done, that's very sensible." And if there's some exams involved, that must be even better, right? Because then it's a serious exercise. And then that's kind of the average career path. And I found it really amazing listening to you about sort of, why do we do that? Well, there is no sensible answer beyond it's sensible and there's money involved.
Yes, correct. It's my two least favorite words in the world. It's responsible and it's reasonable, right? And it's like, even when I taught at university, when I taught at the School of Visual Arts in New York, I said, listen, I am doing you a disservice because I am filling your head up with all these creative ideas. And at some point you're going to graduate and you're going to have debt. And somebody's going to need to pay that off. I don't know if it's you or your parents, but somebody has to pay that off. And I don't care about that. I'm not here to help you pay your debt. If I'm going to help you pay your debt, I'm going to give you the instant fast track for that. And I'll give it to you right now. Okay, fall in love with gray cubicles and fluorescent lighting and never have a fucking opinion in your life. And you're going to make money. You're not going to be happy. You're going to wake up at 30 or 40 and you're going to come looking for me and go, why am I frustrated? Why am I an unhappy parent? Why do I drive home from my creative job in marketing or advertising and I'm unhappy? And I'm saying, and I'll tell you that you're creatively frustrated because there's more out there and you never let it go. You never reached for that brass ring.
And what was it that enabled you to do that? Right? Why didn't you fall into that trap?
I think one of the things that I've been realizing over the years is, like, I was reared in the military, right? I was brought up in the military, very military family, lifelong military dad. And there's a few things that you learn in the military. There's a lot that I got from the military. I got a great sense of discipline. I've got grit and fortitude. But I also learned to question authority because I didn't enlist. I was just brought up in it. So I learned to question authority. I also learned very good posture, which is but I learned to question authority, and I still have a pretty strong sense of that. Like, I'm actually working on the follow-up to Feck Perfuction, and one of the going titles that I actually like, it's not as good as Feck Perfuction, but it's called There Ain't No Rules. And that's the thing about, like, going towards your creativity. We don't go towards our creativity because the rules tell us, that you need to make money, and there's a lot of money in bricklaying. More money in bricklaying and plumbing than there is in creativity, which is a lie. It's a lie because the people who told you that never actually pursued creativity to see in the first place if there was more money in it. Or they tried it once and they got disillusioned, which happens.
So I mean, yeah, the way you describe it is this kind of persistence, and you need to keep going at it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, in many respects, if you look at the sort of the trade-off between a traditional, sensible career, that tends to come with immediate payoffs, right? So, whereas a creative career, you can spend a lot of time working out what it is you're good at, and you might never get there, or you might fail. So it feels like in the shorter term, that sensible career path on some level appeals to us, right? And yet, for the reasons you've outlined, it doesn't.
Yes. Well, it pays off quicker, right? I mean, it depends on what your parameters of success are too. Like my main parameter of success is happy. you know, and happy should be, I mean, I consider myself a wealthy man because I have a lot of the things that make me happy. Do I have, this massive 401k or a yacht or any of the trappings? No. Do I want those? No. I have people who have boats. I can go out for a day and not have to clean it.
Right. And it's funny because it's not funny. You just seem really joyous.
I'm glad it's funny.
Right. You're a funny guy, right? There's no choice about that. But you, like, as you say, there's this, I don't know, you're very zen about the path that you've chosen. And I love this kind of out of the military. And I love the fact that you found the positives in that space, right? So it's not, there was this terrible experience I had and I've kind of bounced the other way. You've gone, I'll take certain bits of it. But you do genuinely seem kind of joyous and at ease with yourself, which gives you the strength to continue. Is that a fair depiction, or is that not what's going on in your head?
No, Christian, I think it is. I think it is. But at the same time, there are other things that go on in my life that, like, I'm like, really? Like, I just got to, like, quite frankly, to share something hilarious, I just got a cease and desist from somebody who said I was, who basically called me my terrorist attitude. And I'm like, what? Oh, and I had somebody else. I got hate mail the other day through one of the social media things, like calling me out as a mouthpiece for the man, and and I had to write them back, going, I'm sorry, did you send that to the right guy? I don't see it. So it's funny. Yeah, I like to think that. I mean, what my superpower is that I allow myself to play. I allow myself to go to places and play professionally in my life, in my career, with my children. That is the avenue to success, and quite frankly, the avenue to financial reward as well. I'd like to think I'm, fairly playful. Joy is different. Joy is different. Joy is a deep spiritual thing that I would like to think I'm on the path to. Yeah, joy is a tricky one, but play is the daily business of it.
And that's interesting that people kind of view you in that way, because I could see that you pose a threat to orthodox thinking.
Oh yeah.
And therefore, actually, I'll put it simply, right? If I want my kid to grow up and be sensible, right, I keep him away from James, right? He is a bad influence, and that's it.
Yeah, I'm a bad influence.
So I could sort of see that the establishment might have an issue with the sorts of messages you're proposing, not because you're telling people to go and commit genuine acts of terror, but there is a point where you're taking people off the straight and narrow. So I find that kind of fascinating that I mean, I don't know if these may just be individuals with, who are sort of extreme in their position, who don't have that as their basis. But I could see an argument that you are challenging the establishment in some way.
Yeah, I mean, I have heard a good amount of that. Yes, Christian. And it's basically fear-based. Like I've heard after, like I've gone, I've given, talks in big conferences, and after I'll be just chatting with everybody, and to me chatting with some guy, and I'll say, I'm glad you enjoy yourself. And he said, yeah, I'm glad. He says, I run an agency. I said, I'm glad my people aren't here, because they wouldn't show up after they heard you. They wouldn't show up to work on Monday. Right. I'm like that bad of an influence that people would go, oh, you know what? Yeah, I can have my own thing, but any boss who thinks like that It's fear. You have to let those people go. You have to
Right.
let those people follow James to the circus, like the fox in Pinocchio, right? You have to let them go because they're never going to produce for you. You have to find, those people are already unhappy. If you're so afraid of that they're going to leave you, you have to let them go. Because you're looking for worker bee drones, then you can find those worker bee drones. But if you have truly creative people who know that you're not allowing them to, if they're chomping at the bit, you got to let them go, man.
Well, because I was going to say, right, that's a North Korean model, right? The sort of places that trap people, right? It's like, right, they have to do that, right?
You're going to get hate mail.
Because nobody would hang around in that environment and go, "This is nice," right? You have to imprison them in their country
Correct.
and manipulate them.
Correct.
And so I think it's really interesting when you've got people who probably when they advertise their roles will be talking about how creative and we want passionate, but all those sort of adjectives.
Yeah.
And then you're basically going, no, but we don't actually want that, right? None of that. Thank you very much.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, not as advertised. Yes. Yeah, and that's why job, I get a lot of people, Christian, who come to me because they've taken roles in marketing and advertising or that type of field and the reason they did it, and this is entirely subconscious. The reason they did it is because it is close to creativity, but it's not creativity. So then they get in and they realize, oh shit, really? This is what I'm doing? I talk with, I had a business call this morning from a guy who wants to do like PR and marketing and advertising for me. And at the end, he was like, we were starting to agree on terms and stuff. And he's like, hey, by the way, is there some room? I know that you're the writer and you're the illustrator and you're the artist and is there some room? I'm like, don't even finish your question, dude. Yes, I want your input. I
Right.
want because if you're not creative and you're not happy, I'm going to fire your ass. Right? I need that. I don't need to be the diva. I have to write the jokes because if you write the jokes, I'm going to have to like own them.
Right.
I'm like, yeah, I wrote that one. Yeah, that was me. But we need to have people we need people on the assembly line who are happy to be on the assembly line. But what we have is people who know that they have a gift and they're frustrated and they're gonna miss a widget or let shit through or whatever.
Right. So that's interesting. So your point isn't right. Every single person wants to be creative. You're looking to liberate the worker bees, right? That don't really want to be worker bees.
Correct.
So your point isn't to say to everybody. So implicit in that is some people are made to sit in the factory and just do their thing, and you're not talking to them, right? You're going, I want to liberate those who, I guess, on some level know that they're in the wrong place.
Correct. I like to say that I am not for everyone, just the sexy people. Right? Not everybody, I can't save all the kittens. We got to let some kittens go. It's okay.
And to a certain extent, right, society, we do need some sensible people, right? Because one of the things I think is interesting is there are certain roles in life where for society to function, I'm talking about the people that do aircraft safety maintenance, right, or manage nuclear power stations, right? I don't want those people bringing creativity into their job. And you could argue the same about the medical profession to an extent, right? We do want genius surgeons that spot stuff, kind of the sort of the people we see on like House on TV or Grey's Anatomy, right? You occasionally get the genius doctors who are contrarian, right? So there's a place for that. But there are lots of activities where we do want people who are going to sit there and almost slavishly follow instructions because we're dealing with the mother nature or the laws of physics. And therefore, I don't want someone going, hey, let's see if we can let's screw this wheel nut on the other way and see what happens, right? We don't. So there are roles where that matters.
There are roles where that perfection and that precision matters. But even then, there are probably people in those positions who can pull their higher ups aside and say, hey, listen, I know that we're doing them this way, but have you ever thought of? Yeah, I mean, you don't want someone to go, break into a hospital and say, hey, I can do this surgery. Let me just make this shit up. We want a little bit of, perfection when they're cutting you open. But at the same time, without creativity, there's no advances in medicine or aircraft engineering or, any of this stuff. It's like, it's funny because I sometimes get people who like jump off the bridge when I start talking. They jump off the bridge and say, "Oh, James, let's just have everybody creative. What would that world be like?" And I'm like, my answer is like, "Hey, let's fucking try it. What do you mean? Why would that be such a bad thing?"
But I love that because that's the same argument that you get with sort of, well, we can't, we can't bring women into this because it's like it's like they don't know what they're doing. They don't have the experience. So diversity and inclusion arguments. And I just turn around and go, well, I don't think a patriarchal society, right, has necessarily been the most effective.
Correct.
So how could actually shifting this be any worse in some respects? It's not like we're moving from an optimal model and going, well, we better. There are a load of stuff that is just not working in the way we all know it intuitively. And so I think that this fear of letting go, so it presupposes that everything's okay at the moment, which clearly it isn't.
Yeah, the fear of letting go is a great way to put it. Yeah, it's a fear of allowing ourselves, and part of the one of the there are no rules to creativity, but one of the standards of creativity is failure, and we have to accept that. We don't want bridges or buildings to fail in the process, but we are still at the point, Christian, where buildings and bridges still fail.
Right.
With all the perfection and all the planning, and $1 million marketing plans that just, that go nowhere. So, we're still at that point.
Right, and with run by experts.
Mm-hmm.
So the bit that I find fascinating is we place a lot of store in experience. And so you see, and typically people running companies, well, I've been working in this industry for X number of years. And that's always a proxy for I know what I'm doing. And I think it's really interesting at the moment where if you look at a society that's changing, so some of the social movements, you've got digitization, whole load of things that mean people that have spent 50 years in a particular industry actually have grown up potentially in an environment that is less relevant. In other words, past experience is not necessarily valuable.
Mm-hmm.
And so I see a lot of protectionism around that and going, well, he or she's been in this industry for a long time. They know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Let's not let any of the kids who don't know what they're doing involved in this thing.
Yes.
And I think that's the dynamic you talk about, right?
Correct. That's the business as usual thing. Yeah. And, it's funny because we, at the top of the conversation, we talked about me as being the guy who just makes shit up, in our little, before the recorder went on, we talked
in the green room. Yeah.
Yeah. The green room, the guy who just makes shit up. But, that's where innovation comes from. I believe that if you had if you had, I dare use his name because he's become a bit of a punching bag for me, and he's better than that. But Elon Musk, I mean, I'm sure there's a huge amount of just making shit up, and going, hey, what would be really funny, like let's do this, right? I mean, we're all just making it up. That's the secret of the universe, is we're just making this shit up. It doesn't matter what level you're.
But that's kind of interesting, actually, because I always look at it in terms of what I call unencumbered, right? And so if you are incredibly wealthy, like the Bezos of this world, you can afford to do stuff. You can take gambles that other people can't take, in theory. So just taking traditional, he can financially afford to do stuff. And if it goes wrong, it doesn't really matter. So you can place loads of bets. And that's how the business model around Amazon. And I guess almost the mindset around Google has the same capability. And they started with their DNA of playing around a bit. But you can place loads of bets and do things that the average person feels and possibly is practically encumbered from doing. So I think that's an interesting example of sort of buying yourself the right to be creative. One, because you've got a platform and people listen to you and they'll do what you say.
Whatever you do, people start believing you. It's valid. It's like, oh, now, well, let's listen to that. And he could have picked it up from his kid. His kid was making a drawing or making a joke, and he's like, man, yeah, maybe that's not such a bad idea. Let's run that up the flagpole. Wah, wah, wah.
Right, and just stick some money behind it and it happens.
Exactly. And boom, yeah, booyah, you got it. Yeah.
And I'm fascinated. I mean, I love the book title, Feck Perfuction.
Feck Perfuction.
I love it because it's just sort of clever, and it's shocking. It's one of those ones that's just a little bit of a trompe l'oeil in artistic terms, right? Which is look at it and go, what have I just seen? And it gives you pause for thought. Clever, and I love it. But this idea of perfection being a bad thing.
Is that a question?
Yeah, well, I was just positing and seeing where you went with it, but we can turn it into a question. Why? What's your issue with perfection?
Perfection isn't a bad thing. It's not a thing, meaning it doesn't exist. I mean, we look out at nature, for example, and we go, "Oh my God, that is so beautiful. That is so perfect." And you're like, and I look at it and go, "No, that's pretty much chaos. You're looking at chaos." Nothing's
Right.
in the right place. You can't make that shit up. It's just, it's not perfect. I come from a field, the field of graphic design, where literally the definition of graphic design is the pleasant arrangement of shapes on a page, right? You move it here, you make it red, you move it here, make it smaller, move it over here, and you could just go do that endlessly. And that's the problem with most people in the design field, which is where I came from, again, where we will waste hours and hours and hours just moving things around that nobody fucking cares about. So all we're doing is driving ourselves crazy. And then we call ourselves a perfectionist. And I think in my book, I say, we aspire to be the quote unquote perfectionist, but what we're really trying to become is a self-hating narcissist, right? That you think you have the freaking answer that nobody else has, which is kind of bullshit to begin with. I don't have a problem with perfection, and I will aspire to it. I was just hanging pictures in a new apartment, and I'm like, you're like trying to get it to look good. I mean, that's a certain level of perfectionism. But for most of us, we use it as a perfectionism and procrastination. We use it as things to stop us because we won't move forward until it's perfect, or we won't start until we're perfect. Oh man, I'll have to go to the beach go to the gym for 3 weeks and diet before I can go to the beach and take my shirt off. What kind of dumbass shit is that? You're basically between perfection and procrastination, you're just basically ruining your fun. Right? Procrastination is not starting, not doing anything because you're not ready, or it's not ready, or the weather's not ready, or you don't start your business because someone said you're going to start a business in this economy. It's bullshit.
Right.
Nothing really matters. Just moving forward matters. Moving forward, moving from your heart, coming from a place of love, trying to make things that other people like, that you like first. And then understanding that other people will like that.
And that's the interesting thing, right? Because so when we look at conventional wisdom, there's this kind of, just because you like it doesn't mean other people will type logic. And you're saying, just enjoy yourself and go with it and be the best version of yourself that you can.
Yeah.
And then implicitly go find the audience that likes that.
Yeah. It's funny because I was doing some research recently about like how to enter the marketplace, for example. And the going theory is figure out what everybody wants. And I'm like, fuck that shit. That is so hard to do. I don't know what other people want. You know what people want? Like, the people want porn and cats. That's the only thing I know that people want. So why don't you figure out what you love and then go find your audience? Because you will have an audience. Figure out what you love first and then just build that audience slowly instead of trying to figure out what everybody needs. How am I going to fill? Because that, you know what that is? That's craving. That is craving. And that is like, I want to be a millionaire. How do I figure out the simple little thing that everybody wants and I'll charge $1 for it and then I'll be rich? And that's fucking coming from that place of craving is bullshit. And you will drive yourself crazy. Why don't you just come from a happy place? And that will show up in your work. And everyone will go, oh, fuck, I like that. That makes me happy. Bonk. And then charge $10 for it.
And there's plenty of examples, right? To really, I mean, if we take the iPhone as a good example of someone going against conventional wisdom and going, we don't need a keyboard.
Yep.
as a starter, and then there's a whole lot of other things that come with it. But it's fascinating there that we've got examples of people doing that are very successful. Now, I also accept we have tons of examples of people doing that are not so successful. And of course, we only hear about the survivorship bias piece.
Correct.
But it's not. This is not. So it's not as if kind of you're pointing to me at some small businesses that tried this and were successful in a small way. There are some massive calls that people made around that, and it does work.
Correct.
And so what I find amazing is that in spite of we've got the role models, what you say just from a pure sort of visceral level makes sense. And yet there are still huge barriers to this happening.
Sure. Yeah. The barriers of fear, the barriers of self-doubt, the barriers of self-worth, the barriers of the thing is that the thing about we all as human beings, we're all capable of waking up in the morning and going, oh my God, I have this beautiful idea. No matter what it is, like something you want to do for your wife, it doesn't matter. They've got this beautiful idea. And then immediately the second, third, and fourth, and fifth thoughts are, will they like it? Is it any good? How will I pay for it? Will they buy it? How much do I charge? All the what ifs, right? That's the threshold. That's the threshold we have to get past. And the way to get past that is by going there again and again and again and again and again and again and realizing that those thresholds, again, they don't exist. You just keep moving forward. And the people who are consistent, the people who persist can become wildly successful.
And so the answer is park those things, go for it.
Yeah.
And just see what happens and enjoy the enjoy the ride.
Yeah. The answer is there ain't no rules. Fuck the fear, and move forward. Yeah, make yourself happy and move forward. But keep moving. Momentum is your friend.
And what are the limits of that, right? Because if I took, and again, I'm sure there's a sort of idiotic criticism of what you're saying. Yeah, but if everybody did what they wanted to do, insert bad outcome here.
Yeah.
So how do we is the answer that we will self-calibrate, right? If it really was stupid. So, I might wake up in the morning and go, I'm going to set my apartment on fire, right?
Okay.
Right. Artistically interesting, but probably not a good idea.
Well, if you do it once, it's stupid. If you do it 10 times, it's brilliant. You start charging. You'll get an audience. Come on, I'm serious. And then you'll learn how to do a good job where you don't actually break anything, you hurt anything. Listen, how many publishers did J.K. Rowling go through?
Yeah.
Give me a fucking with the, an early interview said, hey, Miss Rowling, when you were writing the first Harry Potter, you were a single mom with no job. How did that happen? And you know what her answer was? We lived in squalor for 4 years. And you know what that is? That's the price. That's the price you have to pay. You have to be able to you have to be willing to go there, man. Christian, you got to be willing. I am still willing to go there. And I need people around me who understand that James is fucking crazy. He will go broke in order to, make things happen.
And so, okay, so I think that's and I love the J.K. Rowling. That's an irrefutable great example, right?
Oh, give me time. I'll come up with so many more.
Right, but if I you'll have heard of the Dunning-Kruger effect, right? People who and we see this on TV, quote unquote talent shows, right? The whole Simon Cowell machine of kind of getting people on TV, and then we have those people that think they can sing. And in many cases, they have the reinforcement of their deluded family who go with them to these auditions, right? And they're pushing them. And maybe that's the answer to my question, that people are being pushed into something that's not actually their true talent. But there is this self-belief thing that you talk about. There are plenty of people that have self-belief in a space that objectively that's not their talent. How do we deal with that? How do we know that we're not doing that?
Like I said, there are people who make money with doodles. So I will disagree with you. I think persistence is the way. Now, can you go on TV and all of a sudden you sing with your grovelly voice and then you've got a record deal? Fuck no. But
right.
Can you book gigs and be happy and keep going? Yes. And theoretically get paid for it. Yes. but there is an audience for everybody. You've got to figure that out. Your audience might not be the standard of success, which is get on TV. You just have to understand.
Right. So you might, I guess, the similar example, you might be a comedy act, right? You might think you're really good at singing, but maybe, right?
I mean, you could be, yeah. I mean, what's his name? Where his entire comedy act, he's dead now, but his entire comedy act wasn't funny.
Are you thinking of Victor? What's his name?
No,
the piano dude?
No. It'll. I can see his name in front of me. But anyway, yeah, you got to figuring out your niche. Figuring out your niche doesn't matter what it is. If you can figure that out, and understand that there's an audience there for you, you just got to figure it out. Like you're not for everybody. You're for the sexy people.
And it's interesting nowadays, right, James? There's plenty of opportunities for people to do that. So, what I find really interesting when I listen to you is that historically, you finding that audience would be much harder. But now, through social media and other things on the internet, we've got the opportunity to do that.
Yeah, which is crazy. I mean, my first exhibition as a designer was in Osaka and Tokyo. How did I do that? And this was before the internet. How did I do that? I don't know how I don't know how they've heard of me. I don't know how that happened. I don't remember. How did Martin Luther King get all those people on the green in Washington D.C. without PR? I have no idea. But it works. It somehow still works. And now we have all these things at our disposal. Yes.
So there's even less excuse, right?
Yeah. If you often people are like, how do I, when they're talking about how do I get eyeballs? How do I do this? How do I do this? And I have to share with them my favorite word, which is audacious. Fucking be audacious. Be bold. Just be bold. Have something to say and say it. Have something to sing and sing it. It doesn't care. It doesn't care what it's not important what it sounds like. It's important what it says. If your song has heart and guts in it, it will make people cry. I don't give a fuck how good it is. Billie Holiday does not have a classical singing voice. She's got a voice of a woman who drank too much whiskey, and it's beautiful. You know what I mean? Or Tom Waits, or whomever. That comedian's name is still rumbling around in my head.
We'll get there by the end. Don't worry.
Yeah.
We'll do the usual creative thing. Let's talk about something completely different, and then it'll come. In fact, it'll come 5 minutes after we stop recording. Guarantee you.
Correct. I'll have to call you from my driving to the sawmill I'm going after here. Like, oh, I got it. Wait a second.
So that's an interesting example, right, of what you might, if I think about sort of phrase unconventionally beautiful, right? So people that don't fit traditional stereotypes, but still there is something about them. What you're getting at here, it seems to me, is to say that actually there, a little bit like there's somebody for everybody in terms of relationships. Mm-hmm. You're basically saying there's an audience for everybody's stuff. You just have to go find. So you have to work out what that stuff is by playing a little bit and experimenting, and then you will. I presume your point is you'll find your audience if you keep putting stuff out there. And so it's just a case of it's a little bit of just a repeat, keep repeating, keep going, and then ultimately you will work out what you're good at or what's you, and then you'll find, and the audience will be there for you once you get to that point.
Yeah.
That's the sort of vision.
I think in Feck Perfuction, I think the chapter I talk about that is love, attention, and consistency. If you really love what you do and you pay attention to it, I mean, you practice, you let it grow, you study, and then the last thing is consistency, and that's where most people fall off. They just stop doing it. But you also have to know, Christian, that I'm a fucking believer. Like, I'm a believer. I am John Lennon's dreamer. I believe in creativity, and I believe in the power of it, and I believe in people. So no, I'm never gonna let anybody off the hook. If they feel like they've got a gift, I'm like, you know what? You do have a gift. let's go figure it out. And let's go figure out what who wants that. I mean, shit, I walk through grocery stores or department stores, or I look on the internet, or I see driving around, and I look at stuff and I'm like, it's all completely shit. Who the like an Apple Watch? Who wants a computer on their watch? Aren't you stuck to the computer enough? You need a fucking screen on your watch, or UGG boots, or any of this stuff. I'm like, really? People want this shit? But I sound like somebody's mom at a bridal shower. Really? Does she want that? Is that nice? I don't know. It's like I look around through the marketplace and I'm like, shit, everybody's got an audience, I guess. Go for it.
Right. And clearly people do buy that stuff, right?
Oh, fuck yeah.
And so it's kind of like, and that's an interesting one, which is sort of, you're shifting away from that piece where we kind of go, well, you need a big market. So there's always, the financial plans are always predicated on huge amounts of growth, and we will get massive market share.
Yes.
And yours is the antithesis of that, right? You might also get a very small market that's very dedicated to you and what you do.
Yeah, that's you cannot move forward thinking about the outcome. If your only concern is the reward, you will never be happy, because it will never. I've personally known some millionaires who are not happy because that's all they care about, and their day passes by without a concern for love or beauty or truth. They're just watching the numbers, and it's a very unhappy existence. If you're just concerned about the reward, you'll never be happy, because the process is all that you get. You wake up, you get into your day, you hopefully communicate with some people, spend time with someone you love. That's why we're here. We're not here to, make $1 million. The world doesn't need more millionaires. The world needs more people who give a shit,
Right.
Or who believe in themselves.
And your point is, sorry, I used to work for one, and but it was all, it literally, and there were some wonderful things they could do, but it was also huge amounts of concern, a lot of concern about losing what they have.
Oh yeah. Fear.
And so it's as you said, it comes with this. It's fascinating actually, because on the one hand you're unencumbered in some respects, but to your point, there are encumbrances of another kind.
Yeah.
Which is possessions and other challenges, and loads more things to worry about.
Correct. Johnny Cash was asked about being rich once, and he says, well, that means he says, I don't have to worry about money, but I get to worry about everything else besides money.
Right.
And $1 million doesn't buy you confidence, does it?
No.
I got $1 million. I'm not going to be broke again. No, I could be broke tomorrow.
Right. And if it was that easy to get, right, then you could lose it as well.
Yeah.
Your creative process, clearly, just listening to you and seeing your work, you literally go wherever, right? And it is. I'm starting to recognize your stuff when I see it. So you have your own imprint, but it's a fairly broad waterfront as to where you're prepared to take things in keeping with your spirit. One of the things I think is interesting is this idea of offending people. So some people don't, and some people don't like swearing, but so there's lots of things like that where you could start. Where are the limits on that in terms of decency and those sorts of things?
Let me just put it this way: decency is the enemy of creativity. If you're concerned about not offending somebody, if you're concerned about if your concerns are outside of doing what you want, doing what you love. Obviously, if you are a horrible, evil person with unfortunate parents, and just like you're mean and you're cynical, and then that's how you're going to go out, right? I think that most people are not that way. They're really trying to just we all just want to be seen and heard and loved, right? So if you have that and you're like, hey, I just want to do this stuff that makes me happy, I thought it might make you happy, then there's no problem. If your stuff, I have a few artists friends who make things based on cynical attitudes about relationships, or penis drawings and vagina drawings. And I'm like, really? Okay. If yeah, that's cool. Like I can't go there. I don't do that.
Right.
Do I use the F word? Yes. I don't put it on t-shirts. I don't believe in like walking around with the F word on the t-shirt. I've got a t-shirt that from a conference that has the F word on it, and I actually wear it inside out whenever I wear it because it fits me well, but I can't walk around like that. Would I put it on a poster? Possibly if I knew where it was going to go, meaning if I could kind of mentally control the audience. Um, um, but I don't think there are limits. I mean, and again, I think what happens when you do work with the things that people think are offensive, ideas that are offensive, I think what happens again is your audience tells you what they want, what they don't want, and it succeeds or it doesn't succeed.
Right. And what I liked about what you just said was that there is some calibration there. And the calibration in your piece seems to be you're not intentionally going out to be offensive or piss people off or doing whatever. You're just doing what you do. And so there was a human touch in what you said around thinking about trying to bring pleasure to other people.
Mm-hmm.
And so that seems to me to be a kind of it's not a constraint in the creative sense, but it does calibrate you from going into places where you might breach that. I mean, is that a kind of it's an unwritten rule that I don't want to? I'm trying to do good things for other people. I'm trying to find that audience.
That is, I mean, I think that's just kind of where I want to come from. I don't actually think about that. I do. I mean, so there was a point. I think that point was just maybe 3 years ago where I realized, oh my God, I look back at my work, and my work before then was angry, and it wasn't angry, it was passionate, or it was politically charged, and there was a lot of like skulls and things, and now it's all hearts. I'm like, oh, okay, that's interesting. There's a breakthrough I made or something, but my early work, the work that museums liked to collect, was about the death penalty and about racism, and some pretty hefty ideas. I don't do that now. I don't want to go into those venues. I don't want to stew in current affairs and politics now. I can't stomach that. I think the world could use some poetry.
Right, and but that was a necessary part of your journey, right?
Yeah.
So you are. It's a classic thing of you are today because of what you've been through in the past.
Correct. Yeah, I think sinners make the best saints, right?
Right. And where, like, I mean, you've talked about getting creativity from everywhere. What's your sort of creative process in terms of is there a thing you regularly do, or is the whole point of the process that you just wander and see what happens?
Yeah, I mean, I think if there is a process, or as we would say, process, it's that I create some kind of like safe space where I can play. Meaning, I find for me, often these days, it's on a lawn chair on a porch in the dark at 4:30 in the morning, where I can just let my mind wander and play and go, oh, that's a funny idea. Somebody might like that. Tee hee hee hee. There's no real, I mean, when I have there's a commission that came through that might be coming through today, that somebody just wants a large piece. And for me, it's like, I will to make that, I'll have to get into a place that, I feel sometimes like the Michael Keaton Batman, right? One of the early Batman, they had the Jack Nicholson played the Joker, and there's this wonderful scene where after he's been in the vat of acid, you haven't seen him yet, and the next time you see him, it's just like the back of this. It's like this dark meeting room. It's this back of this leather chair, and you hear that voice coming, and then he's talking about meeting the Batman, and he spins around, and you see that hideous face, and he says, "Wait till they get a load of me." And that's the point I want to get to. That's the point when I can sit and I can doodle, or I can use, my pencils and make little drawings, and I go, "Oh shit." And that's how I want to, what I want to do even when I'm working with a client. Like I want to make something that I go, oh shit, they're gonna not like this, but I'm gonna send it anyway. And you know what? They always like it. They always like it.
Right. So you subliminally know. So your gut reaction tells you that it's the right thing to do. Hence, you do it.
Yeah, because it's me. Because it's going to a place where no one else would go.
Right, because it's your place.
Yes, it's James Victore trying to be. I just want to get paid to be James Victore. I don't want to feel like I have to make shit up or pretend to be something or figure out what they want, because I'll never figure out what they want. I don't know, I don't know what people want. I don't know what quote unquote soccer moms want. They want a vacation, probably. They want to not be called soccer moms, probably.
I was going to say, right, get me away from that branding, right? Yes, right. But I think that's really interesting, because when I look at my experience of working for sort of corporates is that every year you get this kind of annual review, right? How have you done? And what they do is they compare me with the box that they've created for me. And after a few years, so it's like, you don't fit nicely into our box, and here's how, right? On you to correct yourself.
Wow.
And it took me a few years to realize that it's it's Groundhog Day every single year, right? It's the same stuff that I'm not doing. And you start to realize, you go, I'm never going to do this, right? There is no point in having this conversation on a repeated basis, because it's going to be a repeat of last year's. And you're going to go, well, you've done very well at these things, but you failed at these. And the reason for that is you've created, here's a standard box that you want me to fill. And actually what I want is a Christian's sake box, right? That I can fill to the best of my ability.
Correct.
Because it's designed around what I'm good at. And let's take out of the job spec stuff that I'm no good at, right? Well, you wouldn't have hired me to do that. Yeah. If that job just involved those things, you would never have hired me to do it.
That scenario you're painting, Christian, is right out of a George Orwell novel.
Right. Right. But it exists. And I just find it really interesting when talking to you is very refreshing, because you go, well, obviously, this is the way things. And yet the constructs that we have go exactly against that.
Correct.
Right. Is there's lots of these things that are well established. And so I don't think, and I'm, my sense of all the conversations I've had with you is that you're, I don't think that's capable of changing, right? So there's no point in sticking around and waiting for organizations to understand that change needs to happen, right? You'd step out and find your own path. Correct. Because it's not going to be those boxes, if you like, are never going to shape themselves to you.
Correct. I mean, I get people who hire me to do coaching, and they will say, they will talk about their job, my job, and I have to kind of look at it in a third, as a third party, and say, hey, you know what, Helen, that's not your job. You're actually sitting in somebody else's chair, and you should make way for them, because you're going to be happier elsewhere, and your job is going to be happier with somebody else who likes that stuff. I have a lifelong protege. Who has just made his way through the corporate establishment. Now he's a very high up in Amazon. And one of the last times we talked was about 2 years ago, and he was having trouble where he was and at Amazon, and trying to make his way through it. And I said, I'll just call him Tom. I said, Tom, tell me your job description. And he recited, because he'd memorized it, his job description. And I said, does that sound like you? He said, no, not really. I said, well, so why don't you go and take a few days and rewrite that, and then we'll talk. And he did. And I said, okay, now go do that. Ignore what they're asking you to do. Ignore this shit and go do that. And he started doing it. And you know what? He got promoted. and they started using his ideas. And they're like, yeah, you're the kind of guy we like around here.
Right, so that's interesting, right? Because it's using human capital for the reason you've ostensibly hired it for. So,
what a crazy idea.
Those job ads that you see, right? Yeah, we don't. It's back to the earlier. We don't hire people and go, what we're looking for is a bunch of dull conformists, right? We want creativity, and so what you've just described is somebody taking them at literally taking the words at face value. I'm going to go do that. I mean, the risk there is that you get chucked out. But to your point, if they don't want the best version of you, then you're not the right person for the place anyway.
Yeah. And if you do get chucked out, then, you're free to find the place, or do what most people want to do, and they're like, okay, I've been in this machine, I'm 35, 40, I've been in this machine for 10, 15 years, and I've learned all these skills, and I'm helping other people make money, and I just get a paycheck. So why don't I start employing those skills and my nascent sense of creativity and sense of play and my audacious behavior and start doing it for myself?
Right. And I think that I think this is where COVID's been really interesting, because giving people a chance to think about that and recognizing that work is no longer a place.
Yeah.
Right. It's not about going to the office. I mean, for some people it clearly is, but for many people, particularly those in the knowledge economy, have had an opportunity to kind of realize there's something else out there.
Yeah.
And so I for me, this is it's a really sort of interesting discussion as we look at, lots of companies talking about this whole dilemma about, do we let people come, do we force people back to the office? Do we let them work from home? And these kinds of, as if there's a sort of perfect model for it. And I'm pretty convinced that if you fundamentalists at either end are going to get themselves into trouble, right? Because ruling out one thing in favor of the other is missing opportunities to learn from it. But I find it fascinating because we are now tackling some of these. It's not badged in the way that you've described it, but companies are now having to think about this stuff in interesting ways, and we're getting sort of quite visceral reactions from some places.
Yeah, no, I mean you're right in the COVID aspect. The world changed very quickly, and we need to and people are understanding there's more freedom to be had, and more creativity to be had. So why not them?
And is that? I mean, are you finding?
Everybody's creative. Oh no!
Right. Yeah. Well, no, I just wonder: is there? And this is a slightly dumb question, but you'll turn it into an intelligent one with your answer, right? Is there greater acceptance of what you're doing? Are you getting more interest in what you're doing, or is it just it's because you kind of have to be switched on in a certain way to want to speak to you, right? So in a way, the way you brand yourself and put yourself out there. It's there are going to be quite a few people who go, that's not for me, right? I'm not quite there. And so I would say people that I would imagine want you to help them, myself included, are people that have already started to kind of stick one foot outside the door or stuck their head, the door, they know there's a door there. Let me put it that way. Mm-hmm. But are you finding, is there more acceptance of it, or is that difficult to assess?
I think I am like sake or cigars. Not everybody likes sake, not everybody likes cigars. So, I'm a particular flavor, and I understand that. I'm not for everybody, just the sexy people, right? I'm for the risk takers. I'm for somebody who understands that, it's okay to be a little dangerous.
And it's interesting, right? The word danger, because that's a relative thing, right? And so what seems like danger isn't actually. So our risk perception, if you like, is massively misskewed.
What seems like danger for some people is a safe, happy cove for me.
On that note, I could keep talking to you forever, as I'm sure I will do as I continue on your course. But I just wanted to say, firstly, thank you for everything you do. It's been inspirational for me, and as people have heard, it's a lot of fun to do as well. And I think one of the things that's joyful is if you can do something that is enjoyable as well as fulfilling. That's incredibly powerful.
I mean, you and I working together in the format that we're doing in this course that we're doing is a perfect example of, I'm asking you to do things that are very hard, but you can see that it's also very fun and there's a lot of freedom at the other end.
Right. So before I let you go, how do people get hold of you, and remind us the title of the book that I mangled earlier?
The best way is just go to jamesvictore.com. Everything is there. We've got a beautiful new website. And you can find the book there. And the book is Feck Perfuction, which is a play on, fuck perfection. And the best thing to do is to go to jamesvictore.com and subscribe, because we send out, if not weekly, then often we send out love letters. And this is all that's where that and Instagram, which is at James Victore. Those are the two places where I play.
Amazing. I will put links to all of that in the show notes.
Thank you.
But James, thank you as ever for the time that I spent with you. Absolute joy. Thank you so much.
This has been a real treat, Christian. Thank you for your help.
So that's it for this special episode of the Human Risk Podcast. I really hope you enjoyed it as much as I did recording it. My enormous thanks to James for appearing and to you for listening. To find out more about James, his art, his book, Feck Perfuction, his courses, and a whole load of other things, have a look in the show notes. There are links to his website there. If this is your first time listening to the Human Risk Podcast, it's great to have you on board. Do subscribe wherever you get your quality audio content. It's available on all of the major podcasting platforms. To find out more about the work that I do with my clients that uses the creativity that James is helping me to unleash, visit human-risk.com. I'll be back with a regular episode of this show very soon. But in the meantime, stay safe. Think about whether you're unleashing your full creative courage, and thanks for listening.